my first impression of Guatemala City is that it's beautiful and the climate is spectacular.
Yes.
I love it here.
Just ran right through a stop sign. That's not
Amazing.
a big deal here.
That's
That's not a big deal.
Hello everyone, welcome to Undercurrents, a podcast of Mennonite Central Committee. My name is Ken Ogasawara, and in this episode, I'm going to take you on a journey that shows how seeds planted in one part of the world literally and figuratively sprouted and flowered in another part of the world. But first, a word from our sponsor. Undercurrents is sponsored, as always, by our friends at Kindred Credit Union. Kindred cares about creation. Say that 10 times fast. And they are offering creation care loans to members who would like to purchase products such as solar energy systems and geothermal heating cooling systems, as well as home upgrades prescribed as part of an eco-energy audit. Kindred wants to help you make peace with your money. Go to kindredcu.com for more details. I used to do a thought experiment when something was bothering or annoying me. Maybe it was a presentation that I flubbed or a set of speakers that I bought used from someone who assured me he was a pro at refurbishing speakers, but when I brought it home, they sounded terrible. And when I brought it back to his house, he became very condescending and said he's been doing this a long time. And maybe my ears aren't attuned as well as his are, and in the end, refused to give me a refund. When things like this would happen, I would often do an exercise of zooming out. How big a deal is this really, in the grand scheme of things? Would I care about this next year? Would that $100 I spent on broken speakers break the bank or change the course of my life? I would keep zooming out until, having gained the big picture, I could see that my little problem was not really something to lose sleep over.
We are closely watching the escalating wildfire emergency in Western Canada. At least 4,000 people have fled their homes in northern Saskatchewan. Flames are spreading aggressively, threatening communities and roadways.
The climate crisis, however, is one of those things that if you care about the future of humanity and life on planet Earth as we know it, you can't zoom out your way out of. Pop quiz. Which institution called climate change a, quote, destabilizing and potentially catastrophic transboundary challenge, end quote? Was it the UN? The World Health Organization? Surprise, it was the US military. I'm willing to bet that this is the only sliver of overlap in a Venn diagram between MCC and the US military. In fact, MCC, which works in 5 continents and over 40 countries, has made climate action a priority because the ripple effects of the climate crisis has made every aspect of our work in relief, development, and peace building more challenging.
This is so beautiful. Waterfall above us, it's kind of like gushing through these stones. They're all covered in moss in the middle of the cloud forest. The water is like so clean.
In February of 2025, I joined an MCC learning tour to Guatemala to hear and see firsthand from our partners whose lives are being affected by the climate crisis.
Yes, of course.
Most of our group of 14 were my colleagues on MCC's Canadian Advocacy Network, each of us representing a different province or region of Canada where MCC operates. We were joined by a few MCC colleagues from LACA, or Latin America and Caribbean. Guatemala is a small country just below Mexico with 2 coasts, one on the Caribbean and one on the Pacific. During our first orientation after arrival, a friend of MCC, Isra Ortiz, treated us to an eloquent and poignant portrayal of his country as a place of paradise and paradox.
And I hope this will help shape your experience as well. Because sometimes we realize, but it's too late. It's like we already saw and filtered and lived throughout the experience with a very fixed mindset.
A place of great wealth and extreme inequality. A place where Indigenous culture is vibrant and yet still colonialism rules the day. Close to 50% of Guatemala's population is Mayan, and this was very much represented in MCC's partners that we spoke with. Most of them were Kekchi, a Mayan indigenous group. And more than that, they were also Mennonite. There are over 200 Kekchi Mennonite churches in Guatemala, and that is more than we have here at my home conference in Mennonite Church, Eastern Canada.
¿Otra vez? Masale, chol.
Masale, chol.
We learned a few words of greeting in Kekchi at a meeting with Kekchi Mennonite youth partners, some of whom had traveled 7 hours by foot, car, and bus to be with us that day. Most of the Kekchi of Guatemala come from the highlands of Alta Verapaz, a northern department of the country. Historically, they've lived off the land, like indigenous peoples around the world. But in recent years, this is becoming harder and harder to do. Several Kekchi youth told us about their challenges with their cash crops. For example, cardamom. They don't eat it or use it, but it's a commodity that's produced and sold around the world. And so they used to be able to get 100 to 150 pounds of cardamom seeds from a single plant. They're now getting about 10 to 15 pounds per plant, only 10% of their usual yield. And cardamom takes 2 to 4 years to grow, so there's a significant investment in time and resources that could literally evaporate into thin air. A young man named Dario said he's having the same problem with corn, a staple crop and almost a spiritually significant food for Mayan peoples. But they lose money when they grow it. Dario used to be able to get yields of 2,500 pounds of corn from his small farm. Lately, it's been less than half of that. But what happens after the crop fails? What happens after the floods subside? What happens when your land can't sustain you anymore? This is where the ripple effect of the climate crisis really starts to make waves. People who can't live on their land anymore migrate to the city, where, as we saw, life is even harder with people renting 50 square foot rooms for a family of 8. Or they move out of the country. A staggering 20% of Guatemala's entire gross domestic product is money that is sent home from Guatemalans living and working in the US. It's not just about the climate. It's about livelihoods, relationships, and cultures being eroded, like the ground beneath them. So we ask ourselves the all-important, ever-present question, what can we do? Part of the answer came to us when we visited another partner, a high school called Bezaleel, a boarding school for Kekchi children from grades 7 to 12, serving low-income families. As we rolled up in our van to the beautiful campus, nestled in the green hills, all the windows of the school were soon filled with gawking, smiling children. They were shy, but curious.
¿Inglés? Sí.
I tried breaking the ice with my non-existent Spanish and supplemented that with my even weaker Kekchi.
Kekchi muy mascha.
We heard from students about their experience at the school, and here again, climate change came up. Most of these children come from rural areas, the highlands, where the story is the same. Drought, heat waves, no access to water, crops failing. So part of the education at Bezaleel has been innovating on new crops and new ways of growing them.
This one we planted last year, right before our students went on vacation.
Students can then take these learnings back to their communities. It's also a way of empowering youth and empowering girls and young women through education, a theme we heard over and over again. In the context of climate change, those like Dario and Alta Verapaz or these students' families have done the least to contribute to it. Their carbon footprint is a tiny fraction of what ours is in Canada. It's not fair. But one of the lessons we learned from our partners in Guatemala is that we don't act out of pity. Certainly the partners themselves and the children we spoke with at Bezaleel High School didn't pity themselves. They were very matter of fact. Here's the situation, and here's what we're doing about it. In fact, Noreen, a grade 12 student at Bezaleel, went so far as to take responsibility for their contribution to the degradation of their land. She said, "We cut down too many trees. We don't have shade anymore. This is our fault." She wasn't making excuses or pointing the finger at us who have done so much more to contribute to the climate crisis. It was convicting for me to see this young woman skip right past the hand-wringing and analysis paralysis that I too often fall into when confronting big problems. Noreen took whatever accountability she needed to, and then she took what action she could. MCC's co-representative for El Salvador and Guatemala, Chris Alvarez, who joined us on the tour, said that their partners ask only one thing of us: don't forget about them and share their stories. One of the first chances I had to share the stories I heard in Guatemala was at another Mennonite high school right here in my own community, Rockway Mennonite Collegiate.
I'm David. I'm the teacher that is kind of helping with the Rockway side of this Youth Leading Change program alongside MCC.
MCC and Rockway had partnered for an innovative elective program where keen grade 11 students, led by teacher David Penny, could engage in peace building and community impact through experiential learning with MCC's programs. I was one of the presenters for MCC, and I took the opportunity to talk about my recent trip to Guatemala. Everything I've just shared with you, in fact. And then I led them in a role-playing activity called Our Shared Future that puts the students into a fictional community that is dealing with increasing climate emergencies. They take on various roles in the community, from church youth groups to small business bureau to city council to the board of a climate change organization, and each role has an allotted budget and a list of over a dozen climate actions. And the students' job is to discern amongst themselves which climate actions they would take and why. This is a fine activity and really shows the possibilities of what folks in a real community could do. But at the end of the day, it is hypothetical. So at the excellent suggestion of my manager, I upped the ante by bringing with me real dollars to give to them. $800 to be exact. Now, I was casting them in the role of Rockway Mennonite Collegiate students, with real dollars to use. What would they do with it?
My name is Julia Abicht, and I'm a grade 12 student at Rockway Mennonite Collegiate.
Julia was in grade 11 last year when I first led this session. She remembers especially the story of Noreen at Bezaleel. She of the no-nonsense, take accountability, and action.
In particular, it was really inspiring when I heard you talk about the young woman in South America who was taking steps to improve her community and take climate action and improve the environment around her.
Julia describes the money from MCC as a real catalyst for the students and the brainstorming it sparked.
I remember actually the day really well. We sort of like split into different groups. There were some people who were looking into more like renaturalization, and some of the ideas they came up with were the pollinator gardens and putting in more native trees. And I think that's sort of where the like bird and bat shelters evolved out of. There was another group of people who were really excited about sort of like the community garden aspect, which involved putting in the orchard trees. Students could use them maybe as part of science classes, maybe as like personal interest thing during the school year. And then maybe the like larger community could use them like over the summer, which is unfortunately when the main growing season is. We aren't here, but maybe that we could involve other groups that way.
Last year, many of these ideas became a reality as Julia and her classmates got right to work ordering plants and trees and planting them in the warm, muggy days of spring. This is David in May of 2025 as they broke ground on the first pollinator gardens.
Yeah, and it's just great to see them so motivated to be involved in something. I've told them this is going to be a lot of work, and they're
down for it.
They're so into the idea.
Almost 1 year later, Julia and David take me on a tour of their corner of the Rockway property.
There's sort of a path here, so like part of it, the project is making like rewilded space for like wildlife habitat and things, but also sort of making it a community space. So there's already this natural path here, so we kind of worked with that with the trees to create a place that like encourages people to go through it and not like avoid it.
I'm recording this in mid-April, and of course mid-April in southern Ontario is still pretty brown and soggy and dead looking, but Julia sees the potential.
These are pear trees. There's 2 varieties we put in last year, Burr Hardet and something like Bon Louise de Jersey, but I don't know if that's the exact right name. Yeah, we sort of picked ones. Pear trees are generally hardier than apple trees, it seemed, based on my research. So we just for starting off with, we wanted something that was primarily going to survive. Yeah, this one's a Bon Louise de Jersey. I'm going to take that off because it's not going to stay there. Yeah, so the birdhouse here, you can see it was very much used. There's bedding all the way up to the top. Oh, there's a bird in there. There's a bird. You see him? But it's like really full right now, so we'd like to put in some fresh ones. Hopefully they'll use them too. Oh my God, that's adorable. I thought it was too full and they wouldn't use them. That's awesome.
It has been so interesting to see the students that have really responded to these different aspects of the program. And so Julia is a great example for the garden project. As a student who saw something and then felt like, well, if I don't take some like agency and ownership over this, I don't know if it will get done. So stepping into that role. And I think it demystifies leadership to a certain aspect, because these students get to feel like, okay, I'm making decisions and it's working. It's been really cool to see how students are, finding that leadership exists in all these different ways. It doesn't mean that you have all the answers. In fact, it works best when you know you don't.
Even though Julia is graduating in a few months, she's literally and figuratively planting seeds for future generations of students to grow the garden project. She's got big plans.
We applied to Trent University's micro-grant program, which can be up to $5,000. So that would open up a lot of possibilities. One thing that would be fantastic to have is a relatively small greenhouse, because it would prolong the growing season into the 2 halves of the school year. Another thing that would be great is to have a watering system right down there. We had been essentially bringing down buckets of water, which it's fine. It just takes a lot of time. So it'd be great to have like a rain collection, and then of course it's better to use rainwater in terms of sustainability than pulling it up from the ground. So that would be that, and it would be easier to have a hose right off of that to water them down there.
There's a saying, the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. The second best time is now. And it suggests 2 things. It's never too late to get started, but it also reveals a long time frame, much longer than we're used to thinking of.
Yeah, that was a big part of just the proposal writing that they were doing last year. They have to talk about what's going to happen over the next year, what's going to happen over the next 5 years, what does this look like 10 years from now? And that's a hard thing, I think, for them. Like they don't naturally do that. For some of them, I think they thought, yeah, let's plant fruit trees, that'll look really cool, and then by the time we're graduating, there'll be fruit on them. And it was like, no, it's gonna be years before that's gonna happen. And they were still excited about it. Like it became one of those things of them thinking about, but when there is fruit on these trees, what will that look like for the future garden program students? And how will that maybe be able to get integrated with something like our family studies program where they're doing food and nutrition? And what would that look like to invite members of local Mennonite churches in to like teach students canning skills and preserving? And what does that look like if we then have students that can lead workshops for people in the larger community in how to do those same skills? So it starts in a very small thing, and then it becomes this very profoundly different way of looking at your community and the networks that you rely on, and how quickly it becomes something of abundance when it's like, wow, we'll have way more pears than we know what to do with, so what are we going to do with them? Well, obviously we have to give it away, we have to share it. And that is really interesting because it challenges a lot of the ways that we think about food and we think about growing things and what the purpose of it is. They weren't thinking about it as a product, they were thinking about it as a gift. There's something really beautiful in that idea of, yeah, just like food becoming something that is a gift from the earth that you're tending to, and you want other people to be able to share in that. That's the whole idea of it. So
it's not a product, it's a gift. I love this. Indigenous writer Robin Wall Kimmerer describes in her brilliant book, Braiding Sweetgrass, how wild strawberries were the first gifts from the land that she experienced as a child. How different would our world look now if our economies didn't rely on treating the earth's bounty as a product, but rather as a gift?
There's a quote, I'm gonna say that it's Emerson, but I don't know if it is. It's something about like, if I can make it, like if I made one life breathe easier, then maybe that's enough. And I feel like that is what this garden program is about. It was like, we can do something just to make life a little bit better for some butterflies and some swallows and cardinals and robins. And we can do something that, if you want to think of it in the large scale, yeah, it's nothing. It's this tiny drop in the bucket. But it's something that made an impact right in my backyard. And that brought the engagement for these students. That made it feel real to them in a way that, yeah, I think thinking about it in these global terms doesn't.
The scale of the climate crisis is too large to be resolved by zooming out. The big picture is too big. So what can we do? To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded. David was right. That was Ralph Waldo Emerson. I loved the determination of Noreen and her classmates and her teachers, learning new ways of growing food and educating their communities. And I'm moved when I see those same seeds of determination and inspiration sprout right here in my own community with another high school student, Julia, and her classmates and teachers. They made me realize that sometimes you have to zoom in. You have to get small and local. We can't start by saving the whole world. We should start with the land literally beneath our feet. The land in our yards, our schools, our churches. This is a good time to ask our 3 levels of reflection, starting with a changed perspective. Has something in this story changed your perspective on climate action or what is possible for you to do? Where do you need to zoom in or out? The second level is changing relationships. What relationships will evolve from your new perspective? Are there people you could connect with, maybe neighbors or church friends, who you could start your own climate action for peace with? The third level is system change. This is the big picture we operate in, and it can be overwhelming. What are the ways you can advocate for climate justice at a systemic level, whether that's your municipal government or provincial government or federal? MCC has an online letter writing tool that urges our federal leaders to prioritize climate justice for all peoples. I'll include a link to that in the show notes. This is one small but important action that we can take, and you can do it every week if you want to. Finally, whatever climate action for peace you take, let it be done in community, because we're not supposed to be doing this work alone. Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered, I am there with you." We were never meant to be in discipleship alone. Whether that's church planting or tree planting, whether it's sending relief kits or advocating for climate justice, the number one factor in broad social change is seeing others around you do it. I saw Noreen and her classmates at Bezaleel do it, and now you've seen Julia and her classmates do it. Will you be next? I want to thank a lot of people for this episode. Shout out to my MCC colleagues, you know who you are. Thanks for being such a fun crew to travel with. Muchas gracias to Carla Vasquez at Semilla Seminary, who logged long hours and translated between Spanish and English for us all week. To the incredible Guatemalans we met and who shared generously with us. To Dario, Noreen, and everyone at Bezaleel High School, and many others. And to Julia, David, and everyone at Rockway Mennonite Collegiate for being such fertile soil to plant these seeds of climate action. Undercurrents is sponsored in part by Kindred Credit Union, and this episode was produced with help from Kristen Kong, artwork by Jesse Bergen, and theme music by Brian McMillan. Executive produced by Sandra Reimer. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Rate and review Undercurrents wherever you listen to podcasts, including on YouTube now. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode in 2 weeks. My name is Ken Ogasawara. Have a great rest of your day.